Well, hi everybody, and welcome to the conversation. I'm here with my friends Josue and Jenny, and Mia, the little one. So, guys, thanks for doing this. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we're so glad to have a conversation and hang out for a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're so
we're
happy.
we're
Thank
stoked
you
to
for
do
having
it.
us.
Yeah, we're really stoked. And for those that can see Mia, she is the newest addition to the family. She's going to join us, and it'll be fun to see what she adds to the conversation. So, well, Josue and Jenny, I'm stoked to hear, obviously, your story. I'm excited for people to hear what God's doing with you guys now. But even before we get to what the Lord has led you into as far as Honduras and your partnership there, why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you both grew up, kind of where you coming from?
I'll go ahead and start. I grew up in Peoria, Arizona. I have one sibling, older brother. So family of four. Typical childhood with just playing sports, going to school. My mom was a Christian. My father wasn't, so my mom was the one who would bring us to church and really just like instill those values in us. Um, so yeah, I just grew up doing those types of things. We were really involved in sports. My brother playing baseball, me volleyball and softball, and just doing that stuff and hanging out with your neighborhood friends and stuff like that. And then once as I got older, I got more involved in my church and my youth group, and that's how I really got introduced to missions. Going on my first mission trip to Mexico when I was in sixth grade, and I just from there I felt like God began to open and stir my heart for missions and people and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I come
hmm
from.
Well, I'm also I was born in Honduras, and I always have to add Central America because sometimes the country is too small and maybe sometimes people don't know where that is. So it's Central America. I grew up in a city called Comayagua near the U.S. military base in Honduras. It's a small town, maybe over 100,000 people now, probably. Um, I grew up with my dad and my mom. They were already pastors full time in the church. The church that he was a pastor for about 21 years before actually God calling us to start and plant the Vineyard Church. I grew up in the church, playing music, trying to learn how to lead worship and learn how to play the keys and had a drum set there because we live in the house just next to the church. So I was able to go and hang out at the church, and I didn't have a TV growing up, so I was able to kill some time playing some
Yeah,
soccer and playing instruments.
yeah,
So I'm kind of grateful that that's something that I
yeah.
didn't have growing up, so I could use my time with something else. Um, then I think there was a lot of turning points. And when I was 14, 15, one of the pastors in the city invited me to join a group. They were having camps, youth camps every year,
Okay.
and they opened up space to just say, Josue, can you help us lead? And I think that really helped me gain a little bit more, be more confident in front of people and helping youth and just leading and kind of open it up to the Holy Spirit. The church that we were at wasn't as open, and it was a little more traditional in one sense. And there was a lot of things that I didn't know until we went to this church. Actually, the pastor was from California. And so I think that really helped me because 3 or 4 years later, I went to college, became an electrical engineer. I started loving math and physics and crazy things like that. So
I have
I,
never
I
said
think
those words in my whole life.
yeah, yeah. So my background, I think sometimes you go to college and I was challenged. I had to leave the city. I went to the capital
Okay.
to go to college. Obviously you get exposed to more things, right? At least for me, now I actually had a TV and things started changing. So I grew up that way. I think my background helped me to just stay um, in the course of just being with the Lord and able to pass that. And so after that, was leading worship, met Jenny, and then the story from there. It's
So
amazing. We dated some
wonderful.
time. She went to Honduras as a missionary, and we met there. So it's been an amazing, amazing opportunity. But in the last 6 years living here in the States, it's been amazing too.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to summarize that a lot of years.
No, that's awesome, man. So you mentioned obviously Jenny, you guys met actually in Honduras. So tell me a little bit of that story. How did you guys actually get connected?
So like I said, I felt like the Lord was stirring at a young age, like sixth grade. Then later in my high school years, my best friend's mom oversaw the Honduran partnership for the Vineyard churches, and said, "Hey, do you want to go to Honduras?" And so I was kind of like, I don't know. And sure enough, I ended up going to Honduras. At this time, I didn't know Josue, and we didn't even know his family at this. This was like 2003. I went for my first time, and just my heart was completely broken for the people, and just fell in love. I was literally at the airport crying as we were leaving to go home, and people were like, "I miss my dog," and I'm like, "No, I don't." I was like crying. I didn't want to go back home. I was like, "I don't want to leave these people." And I was sobbing the whole flight home. Everything. People were like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on with her?" And then I got home, and my mom was like, "How was it?" And I literally remember laying in my bed and telling my mom, "I'm gonna go live in Honduras. I'm gonna teach English there." And she was just like, "Okay, you can do whatever you want." This is like I was a sophomore or a freshman. And sure enough, I ended up going to Honduras every year after that. And then my senior year, I just was like, "Okay, God, is this it? Like, I'm done with Honduras. Like, just move on." So I was really praying. I graduated early, and I was doing an internship at my church. And we ended up getting a phone call from a couple that was overseeing the youth group at one of the Vineyard churches, and asked if I'd come down for a couple months and help them. And so that was just a really answer to prayer. And so from there, I just started preparing, and I was supposed to go down there for 5 months and ended up staying there for 7 years.
So that couple, I was leading worship for them. We started a small group with 7 people and became a group of almost 100.
Yeah.
And that's when they actually asked Jenny, and they told me, "Hey, there's actually going to be a missionary coming down here." And so we met because she was helping this group Fridays, and I was leading worship, and it's kind of how we kind of got connected, and started talking, and just became friends and all of that. That's how we met.
So when I moved there for what was supposed to be for the 5 months, I went down with the team from my church. My mom actually joined that team so she could see. And she was. I described Honduras like it was paradise, and when she was there, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm leaving my daughter here." She was a little scared, but I ended up staying the 5 months there, and we just really worked in some neighborhoods, some barrios with some youth kids, having Bible study, really just pouring into teaching computer classes, all different things. I went down there with another guy from my church, and then he ended up feeling like this is not what he was supposed to be doing after the 5 months, and decided not to come back. And I felt like God was definitely doing something there within Honduras. And then actually the funny story is of how we really met was it was before like I had actually started my 5 months. Our translator on the team, which was a good friend of mine, she now oversees our Mexico church plant in Puerto Peñasco, Rocky Point. And she said, "Hey Jenny, do you know Josue?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know who he is. I know he leads worship, and I think his dad's the pastor." She's like, "Oh, he just got to the church and he was tuning his guitar, and I just saw him and I saw you guys together." And I was like,
she's the matchmaker, man. The matchmaker.
I was like, "This is not why I'm here. This is not why I'm na." And then she went off and told Josue, like, "Hey, Josue, do you have a girlfriend? What are you doing?" She's very like,
man, she's on it. She's on it.
And her personality is very much like that. And so he was like, "Oh yeah, I just graduated. I'm doing my practice from college, and I don't have a girlfriend." And she's like, "Oh, I have the perfect person for you." And she like pulled me in and was like, Jenny was like very awkward. And
so, she had to translate because Jenny didn't speak Spanish.
Yeah, I didn't speak Spanish
at the time. English very well.
So but
it was an interesting way.
Yeah, but more on like a serious note, like for sure for me, it was like I had a lot of people supporting me, and from people who knew me knew that I was really involved in missions since I started in 6th grade. Ever since then, I was really involved with our Mexico stuff, and then turning into Honduras. So I had a lot of people who supported me for many years and stuff. And I just, I wanted to make sure this was from the Lord, because I didn't want them to think, they're supporting me, that I'm, that my motive is different for being there. And it wasn't, I had that conversation with Josue and I said, hey, look, if this is really what God has, it's something we have to pray about it and really see, I'm not from your country, you're not from my country. Like, this is a big deal, and I ended up sharing with like my close pastors and family, like to really be praying. And that we ended up having, we were around Josue a lot because he led worship for the youth, and he would travel. We would go every 2 weeks to visit his parents' church because we were staying in the capital, and so he would take us by bus to go to there. And so, we prayed and we continued to talk, and we really felt like we for sure felt like the Lord was in this, and and I could look back now, and no one ever second guessed me in what I was doing in my heart, and God really blessed us in that, and we started dating November 5th, 2006. So we dated for about almost 4 years before we got married, and we'll be married 10 years in July.
That's awesome. Congratulations, you guys. And now you got a baby.
So yeah, that's kind
of me is happy too.
Me is happy too. So let me ask you this. You mentioned, obviously, Jenny, from 2 different countries. So what's it been like, even just what was it like getting together, especially when there was the language barrier early on? So what was it like getting together from 2 different cultural backgrounds? And then what's it like even just being married from 2 different worlds? Share some of that story. What have been the joys and the struggles, and how's that been?
It's very starting with the holidays during the year, right, and all the different celebrations and traditions, and even how do you do Christmas, right, and when you open the gifts, and what do you do, what do you eat, and so it's very amazing. I think in my case, and I think for both of us, oh, you agree too, baby? Yeah. So it's a challenge, I think, in the sense of you're used to doing things your whole life, right? In one way, and then you all of a sudden you have someone that got hooked, and you're married, and you want to obviously come together and celebrate and do things together, right? And you can either just go say, well, I'm gonna do it my way because that's how I'm been doing it forever. Hey, you're agreeing with that? Or you can just say, you know what? Let's see how can we find a balance between something that actually is cultural at the same time, but we can find a balance and do things together and celebrate and be happy without forgetting our roots, right? Because that's kind of like the challenge. When you're in Honduras, we want to do things there. She lives 7 years there, and so you want to do things more like the Honduran way, but at the same time, if you just do 100% of that, you end up missing the things that you had when you were a kid. For Jenny in the States, same case for me when I'm here now. It's like, hey, we do this in Christmas, or we do this for New Year's, so finding that balance, I think, is one of the amazing things. We've been married for 10 years, and I think we're still working in that. For example, Father's Day is coming in a couple of days in Honduras, so
interesting.
So we need to celebrate Father's Day twice, because the Honduras and the States. So
there's a lot of things. Josue's not used to Halloween. You dress up. Easter Bunny. What's the Easter Bunny? There's a lot of different things that there's just not. But early on in our relationship, we would. I was obviously learning Spanish. That was a big struggle for me in the beginning. I was frustrated, like, how could God call me to this country and I don't speak the language? And I remember it was a very internal struggle for me, just being discouraged because I like to communicate with people and talk to people, and I just really prayed for the gift of Spanish, and God really blessed me in that. And obviously I was immersed and just like learning. And but I remember in the beginning of our relationship, we would say, like, even maybe when we first got married, it would be like, we'll speak English one day and Spanish the other day. There's a lot of things culturally. It helped that I lived there for so many years, so I understood where Josue was coming from. I understood what his culture is. I love his culture. I understood it really well. In the beginning, it was very hard, I think, for me personally, because I wasn't familiar with the food, and I remember there were some times of tension and just like, I'm trying to be courteous and trying to respect them, but maybe this is not something I'm used to eating. So there was just a lot of learning curves and stuff, and
it's same for me now that I'm here. It's very, ideally, I think every couple that has like a 2 different cultures mix, you will probably want them to have the experience of being in those places at least a couple of months, but it's not something that practically can happen. But I'm just saying it's amazing how things when I came, it's like, okay, now I understand why there's a lot of things that Jenny used to do or was trying to do there
Yeah.
that I never did, right? And it's like, well, this is just you coming to my country, right? Telling me something, I'm like, but I don't understand that because I don't have a context for it, right? It's I don't understand exactly why we're trying to do something certain way. And then you come here, it's like, oh, now I see it because this is normal and it makes sense, right? It fits in the culture and the context where you're trying to do any. And then I think I should talk about this in missions a couple of years, I think, about then you can find a balance. Then it's amazing how you can say, well, you know what, maybe in Latin America we're a little bit more, usually not on time all the time and maybe not good. Sometimes we don't plan a lot, sometimes we do. But then you can find a balance in how do you do things in the States and when you want to accomplish things and you know the checklist and the program. And it's kind of like a nice balance, I think. When once you live in both countries, you can understand more where is that person coming from.
And I think we've learned to really take the good things out of each of cultures, has negative things and positive things, and trying to find that balance. I mean, we love each other and we compromise and we try to understand each other's culture. And
it's something. Two examples. You know, Easter in the States is one of the biggest times where you expect a lot of people in church.
Right.
In Honduras, everyone's on vacation on Easter.
Yeah, they close the church.
So you got 3 or 4 days of vacation and no one goes to church because it's like
it's called Holy Week, which everyone gets off, and it's like spring break for them in a sense. It's really hot. People go to like the beach.
Yeah, at least you know. So you come here, it's like this big preparation, right? And it's like, well, my dad used to cancel service on Sunday because not a lot of people finish.
Well, so it was like we dressed up a little more on Easter. I'm like, well, normally people wear like dresses and they dress up for Easter.
So it's like literally could not be more opposite.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just a lot of things, but I feel like, by God's grace, we've overcome a lot of those things, and we love each other, and we respect our countries and some of the traditions, and we compromise on some things.
Right. Let me ask you this: for both of you, kind of even in your own walks with Jesus, as both of you have traversed those cultural lines, like you said, and you've learned to compromise, you've learned to, I'm sure, appreciate things about the other culture and learn things about the other one's culture. What's it been like even in your own walk with Jesus? How have you each grown through that process as you've learned to kind of step into each other's world and learn to become more like them in that regard? What's that been like? Even just how have you grown along the way? What are the challenges, or what have kind of been the growth points for you? What have you experienced more about Jesus maybe even in the process?
Well, you know, for me, going as a missionary in Honduras, there was a huge, tremendous, their culture is completely different. Honduras is very slow paced, very family oriented. We're talking about, I lived there in 2006, and then those beginning years, so we're talking, over 10 years?
Yeah.
So this is like before Facebook, internet, like that they had like barely had dial-up there.
Yeah. And
so like it was I had a lot of solitude, and you know, the funny thing is I like prayed as growing up in high school that I wanted to just really depend on God, depend on God alone. And God really answered that prayer, because I wasn't in communication a lot with my family, hadn't had that access, so I spent a lot of time alone with the Lord, and learning their culture, the way that Honduras, what they have to offer you is like the last meal. Like you open the fridge, they don't stock their fridge up. You know, they don't just have food, stocked there. It's like you eat you have. And so for me, you know, I remember like throwing away a little thing of oil, and Josue's mom was freaking out. It's like, no, we reuse that. This is what this cup's for. And just trying to relearn, because I'm just used to, you just throw it away. You know what I mean? Because that's just our culture. And so for me, just respecting and learning, and just my relationship with God just grew to a whole nother level, just so deep. Just watching them and the way that they interact with each other, the way that they worship God, the way that they do their everyday life, it really was life changing. I mean, I was 19, so I lived basically my whole 20s in Honduras. So I grew up as an adult in Honduras. So yeah.
I think for me, one of the things that it's been very, so that was Jenny in Honduras, but for me moving here, it's not, I guess, looking at the culture in the way how the church and the small group, I've been able to plug and enjoy a little bit more that part because it's what Jenny were talking about. We've been trying to get small groups planted, and it's like a different way to do things because like transportation is not that easy, right? Not everyone owns a car and can get there on time for the traffic in the capital. It's like you have to pick people up, which is fine, but you have to think of different way,
Right.
rather than just say, hey, we're meeting here and I'll see you there, and everyone kind of finds a way to get there.
Right.
And here, right?
Right.
So I feel like just enjoying the small group, the people that we met with, it's just like amazing, enjoying the love, and I feel like kind of learn to be a little bit less judgmental, even though that's something that God is calling us to do, and I don't think it's more like a Christian thing than a cultural. But even though but I feel like I don't know if it's for the background that we have in girls, whatever. I just feel that it was more like a legalistic a little bit.
Yeah.
And just coming in here and enjoying the church and the people, and I don't know, seeing sometimes how families, because the kids here that are 18, they kind of find a way to be more independent. So just seeing how the family relate and love kids that go in their ways and they try to work and find a way to just
Right.
be independent at a younger age and kind of get a little bit more. I feel like they're a little bit more mature because of that. They probably push at a younger age, and I don't know. There's a lot of things. So in my work with God, I feel like I've been able to connect in a different way, and just challenge, but seeing the church and the family and the people in a different way, like in a less legalistic, I think.
Yeah.
Way. Probably. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this real quick before we kind of get into what you guys are doing with the Honduras partnership now. So even obviously Jenny growing up in the States, but then living in Honduras, Josue for you growing up in Honduras, now living in the States. If you were to both think about just like the kingdom of God and the way, like you mentioned earlier, Jenny, every culture has got stuff that looks a lot like Jesus, and then every culture's got stuff that doesn't look like him, right? So if you were to each unpack your own home cultures, now having lived in the other one's culture, what would you say, like when you look at American culture, what are the things you see that look like the kingdom of God, his thumbprint in our culture? And then what would you say about Honduran culture that very much reflects the kingdom of God? Like, are there different things about each culture that you look at and say, oh man, yeah, that is very much like the way God intended it? I'd love to just kind of hear, since you both lived in the different places, what do you see in each one?
Yeah, well, I think you're right. So, for example, I think what Jenny was saying in Honduras, one of the things that I miss is that the pace, right, and the way today or yesterday in the small group we were talking about, my dad, he travels, it's 20, 30 minutes every day, and that for them is a long drive in the city that I live because it's so small, right? And so you go to work, you need a special shuttle to go to work. And so but I'm here and I'm driving an hour to go to work, right? And that's like every day I go back and forth, so it's 2 hours. And that is like, yeah, that makes sense. You're in traffic, so an hour in the States, or at least in the big city, it's okay. So it changes, and I feel like, to me, it feels like the kingdom of God in the sense of you have a different pace, and you kind of can slow things down a little bit more, and just what Jenny said, have a little bit more solitude, and there's not so much pressure, right, in getting things done during the whole day. I feel like here, and I mean, you have to be so intentional to be able to put time during the 24 hours you have in order for you to get and do things, with God and just have more time with God. I just feel like for some reason, for the technology, I don't know, it's just a little bit harder. And I feel like when you go over there, because of the pace, you go to the mountains, you visit people are kind of more ready in that sense, right? Because it's so different. And like they're just, you find them sitting in a group already,
right?
Because they have time enjoying a cup of coffee. You might find it here, but I don't think it happens very often as it happens in Honduras, right? It's more common to see it. And so I feel like the kingdom of God in the family, in the neighborhood, in the community, in the way of the neighbors, how they interact with each other. Homes are way smaller, at least where my parents live. And so you can see the community coming together.
Right.
They know each other. And so they go to my dad and say, Pastor, can you come pray for me? Even though they go to a different church. And they have I feel like those ties and the way how the everything works, it's kind of helps you bring the kingdom of God in that way. So I see it in the loving and connection that in the opportunity you have to just connect with God and the readiness of the people, I would say, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know for you here in the States, I think culturally, and that's, for example, one of the big differences is how we, and it's really interesting. And for example, in Honduras, it's very common that you will see families and your sisters or whatever living with your parents, and they live like first, second, third generation in a house. Sometimes
Right.
just one kid or something, because there's a lot of dependency and there's a lot of the parents trying to make sure that the kids make right decisions. And when it comes to God, it's like we become. I feel like it's more like you have to do this, you need to do this, and we kind of push and try to drive what, like, oh, if you don't come to my church, you're not welcome in another church,
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that. And we're just trying to demand how do you have to do it, right? Trying to dictate from up here to the kids, even though they may be 25 or 30 years old. In the States, I feel like there's a little bit more independence and therefore more. If someone is 18, 19 going to a church, they most likely actually want to do it, and they're not doing it because the
Oh,
parents
right.
tell them.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? So there's a different connection when you go to this, like the group with 20-year-olds,
Right.
and you pray and you worship because they're there because they really want to be there, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying that in Honduras they don't want to, but a lot of it happens because you just want to, you live in that roof, right? You live under your parents' roof,
Right.
and you have to follow what they're telling you to do, right? So, and that's a cultural thing, I
Right.
feel.
Yeah. No, it's
Some
good.
people might disagree, but I think it happens because I can see it, right? You have to go here, you have to attend this church, if not
Right.
that other church, and so there's a lot of that, and so I feel like God works in different ways in the States in that area. I don't know.
There's a lot more of leaning into that and being more independent. Like this is this what God has for me. This is what I'm gonna do, type of thing.
Right, and less dependency on telling me how to make my decisions and what do I have to
Right.
do, right?
Right.
But I don't know, yeah.
Jenny, would you say very similar things, or do you kind of see different things in the two cultures?
I would say very similar things. Like living there in Honduras, I felt like the fellowship and the relationship was genuine. People were just genuine. Their relationships,
Right.
and I feel like that's how the kingdom of God is, just very relational, and doesn't matter what you look like, what you have, money, no money, like just that relationship with people and taking that time is for sure a strong point in Honduras, and something that is very much valued. Looking back of when we first moved here, it was a struggle for us to kind of catch up. The United States is a very fast-paced living life, and
Right.
just figuring out how to find that. So yeah, I would totally agree with what the 2 points Josue made.
Right. So after all of your guys' journey together, right, connected to Honduras, I know that now you're both leading the church partnership in Honduras. I'd love for people to hear, I mean, obviously I've gotten to be there with you and experience the partnership for myself and just see some of the incredible things that God is doing. But I'd love for you to be able to unpack for us how the partnership works that you're a part of. For folks that have maybe never heard of it, Jenny, obviously you mentioned you've grown up really with a heart for missions. Now both of you are involved in supporting people overseas. So how does the partnership work, and what do you guys spend most of your time doing with the church in Honduras?
So yeah, with the partnership, I feel like it's really nice that me and Josue, when we were living in Honduras and married, we traveled to a lot of the churches and would visit them, support them. Josue led worship conferences, helped train their people with worship. We just supported the churches throughout Honduras. And then when we moved stateside, we're still really involved, but weren't overseeing the partnership. And then once we were asked to see the partnership, it was just like a natural process. Like we knew everybody. We had a good relationship with everyone. We knew the ins and outs of what was going on in Honduras. So ever since, what year did we take it over? Like
16 or 15.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago.
We've been going every year, so.
Yeah, so it's kind of blended together. But yeah, basically right now with the partnership, we're supporting the churches there, local indigenous leaders, the pastors that are in the different cities. Why we're here in the States, whatever that is, resources, connecting with them, training via, internet or phone calls, or supporting them, whatever they need. And then we do bring teams down there from Vineyard Church North Phoenix once a year. And basically the teams that we bring down are just supporting the local church. So the Vineyard churches, we try to go to many Vineyard churches that we can while we're there. And whatever they're doing in their community, we just support that in them and help them with that. And if they want training on certain things, we'll do that. If they request certain things, we'll do that as teams. But we're basically just supporting them when we bring teams in. And the key, I think, is building that relationship, continuing that relationship, because Honduran people are very relationship,
right,
oriented. Our goal is, sometimes we're just going to hang out with them and build relationships. And we've had people that have gone multiple trips. They go every year, they just come back because they've built that relationship. And that's one of the things I noticed doing missions in Mexico was, getting people saved in the park, giving them the clothes off your back, and then you'll never see them again, maybe in heaven. But definitely when I started working with Honduras, it was a relationship that's ongoing with these people, a deep relationship.
And I think the other, so it's been, one of them is supporting, I think for the last maybe 4 or 5 years, we've been trying to help with the school supplies and helping. There's in Comayagua where my parents live, my mom has been working on the project, trying to reach out to the really, really poor areas and bringing some, helping the kids go to school. There's a lot of kids that don't go to school because they're just probably missing a backpack, or they don't have like a book or a pencil or a pen to go. So once a year, my mom does that, and a lot of the people, when they go, they feel connected from the church, the team, and they help. It's very, God. Some people have been doing it every year. Other people, they just go in and feel like, hey, I want to help this year, and it just God opens, the doors, and they just keep doing that. So, and the other thing is,
you said your parents are one of the pastors, right?
So, and the other thing is, even though Honduras is small, there's a lot of churches that go there, and so we try to develop a relationship, but at the same time meeting people that go there, and we're just trying to work together and have a bigger community. And so someone might be, already be going there, and sometimes it's really kind of hard to know everyone that goes, but we know that some other churches go there, and we've been trying to just learn and see what they're doing, and see how can we connect with them, because there's different missions and needs and things that they can do that. And so the partnership, basically, it's about trying to develop those relationships and
connect them with the pastors that are there in Honduras, and get people connected, and then also provide resources and provide anything that we can to help the churches and the planning of churches there and the movement there. So whatever they need, we're available to provide that for them is how it's kind of been going.
Okay. So one of the things I love about your guys' journey that I think God's really got a cool just sort of mantle for the two of you. One of the things I'd love to hear, kind of more on a broad level, you guys obviously have a really unique perspective. Josue, you obviously grew up in Honduras. Jenny, you lived there for a while. And now, though, you're leading a partnership with American churches partnering with Honduran churches. So, and I know I've talked with you guys over the years, but obviously there's a crap load of churches from America that come down to Latin America, right? Like I'm sure every other day there's another team coming. And I know from your perspective, I'm sure you've seen over the years things that are helpful, things that are actually a blessing to the churches in Latin America, let's just say Honduras. But I'm sure you've also experienced things that are not helpful, things that we may think are helpful, but actually are not a blessing to the local people wherever they are. So would you guys be able, just on more of a broad level for a minute, especially since you take teams down there, what are the things you've seen over the years that are a real blessing to the local people and the churches there? But are there also things maybe you've seen that could be good things for us to think about that are not actually helpful? Maybe we do them thinking that we're being helpful, but they're not actually blessing people.
I think to start off with the blessings, I think bringing teams down there and stuff like that. Number one, the churches feel like we're their family. We're part of a bigger family. I always have the team members share their testimony. Like before the pastor would speak, I have somebody share like a 5-10 minute of their testimony, and saying a lot of the Honduran people and culture, it tends to think that, oh, they're North American, they don't have issues,
Right.
they're not poor, they don't, they don't have, a lot of things. So when they start hearing these people share their testimony that are on the team, it's like, oh, but I've been through that, or I've had addiction, a drug addiction, so it just shows them we're all humans. And I feel like there's always such a cool way that God does things between us when we take teams down there, when we
yeah, so
share.
I think Blame basically showing them how real and how we are, or in the States, real person, and how you have struggles too. Because I think traditionally, at least for me in Honduras, you think of missionaries that go there, or people that will visit you. At least in the other churches, people that is kind of already there.
Right.
Like
they're holy,
you're pastor,
Right.
and of course you have a calling, but there's still you're a human, right? And there's things there
Right.
that are real and struggles about. And when you show that side, I think that blesses a lot of people, leaders and members, when you try to be so open and be real with them and show them that there is the same way, maybe in a different context and with different resources, but still it's a journey. You're trying to get there, trying to follow Jesus, and you have to struggle. So I think that's a big blessing
for sure
from the leadership perspective.
Yeah.
Now, in the other hand, I think one of the things that previously my dad and we saw before, it's that sometimes when people feel they have a calling to go, they see things that need to be changed right away, and then you don't give them enough time to understand the why behind why is it a practice in that country, and like in Honduras, right? And you just go there and it's like, well, you should be doing this way. Like you see it, and you can see that it might be something that really needs to be changed for sure, but no, you kind of have to develop the relation first, because sometimes it hurts leaders when you just go there and tell them that you need to fix something
this,
without even kind of open it up and saying the reason that why.
Right.
We're friends. Right. I can see that it works for you, and we have a relationship before just trying to hit the mark. So I think I've seen many times how just highlighting those things and saying you need to do this differently. This is not working because of that.
Right.
Or just not giving it enough time to develop the relation and just trying to make changes right away in churches, even in the political view. It happens a lot,
Right. I'm sure.
Organizations who go down there, they're not Christians. Sometimes they just try to do things differently. It doesn't work because you kind of have to understand both sides. For me, understand why you're trying to tell me that, why you want me to change that, and for you, maybe try to understand like why are you doing it that way, right? Or what happened? Was it it's a 100-year maybe old tradition that you might not want to be changing, right?
Yeah, a lot of it is like Josue said, sometimes us as North Americans can come with the mentality of we know how to do it better. And so it can be, that shouldn't be the heart, or that we're bringing Jesus to Honduras. And no, that's not the case. He's already there. And so it's just kind of having that mindset of, not pushing our, the way we may do things at our church or what's been successful for us is not maybe the case for them, and culture and texture, all that stuff. So being sensitive to that, and I mean, if they ask me a question or they ask, how do you do this? Well, I'll share that, but making sure that you know that those two things you have to be very gentle with that.
Yeah. So I think just to recap those two things, the love and being a real human, people remember when you visit them, and they keep asking. They remember names. In Honduras, they know who went there.
Yeah.
They remember faces. And they're like, oh, you were here 5 years ago. Even you might see 1,000 people and you don't remember, but they do. A small community, they remember that. So when you go back, it's really important for them because they're like, he is really interested. Right. He's really trying to be here, and he showed me love. And then on the other hand, not just some people just go and it's like, hey, boom, boom, we're gonna have to change this. That creates challenges, and I think it hurts sometimes. Or you think about, well, this is just about putting the money here to change something, and it's got to do with more than that, tradition and culture. Why are you doing it, right? So I think those are, to me, are the biggest pros and blessings and things that hurt sometimes.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this just on a practical level, because I know for a lot of folks may have a heart to, even as they hear your story, people may be at home and they may have a heart to be involved in another country. They may even, like you, Jenny, feel like God's actually given them a heart for a specific country or for a specific people group. But I know most folks are just like you guys are and like I am, all working jobs, right? I know you're not both vocational pastors full time. So what's it been like just on a practical level, both working, now having a new baby, and being involved in the place that God's given you a heart for? Could you just share what's it been like on a practical level for you guys trying to juggle all of it, working full-time jobs and also being involved in another country?
I think naturally for us, it's our passion, it's our heart, it's what we love to do. So we make the sacrifice to find. I think we always have it in the back of our mind, like anything that we come across, or like, oh, we got to get that for Honduras, or oh, how can we apply this there, or like, will this work, or our heart is always like, how can we provide and help and support them, and then I think it's just a natural.
Yeah, I think so. For me, it's been very challenging actually when I moved to the States, because in Honduras, because of the pace and the way how we're doing things, somehow I feel like I have more time, but the 24 hours are the same, right? I just, and that happened even before having Mia. So no, it's not just the baby, right. It's just moving, right? But, it's been a challenge. Actually, we were talking about that. We have a small like a study Bible in our Bible study in our office, and I was just telling them about how I feel that God called me to do in ministry time like full time, but I just feel like I'm a good engineer and I'm still working in my career, right? And I'm trying to develop that, and sometimes I feel a little bit down because I'm like, but God is calling me to be a pastor, but at the same time, I feel like I will not be responsible if I don't put all the time, because that means for me, I come home and after, when they're sleeping, I'm, for example, right now I'm finishing another certification for my engineering career, and then it's like, wait, so, you could use that time for something else. So in a practical level, I've been praying, and with Jenny, we're praying is like, I ask God that I can enjoy the little things that we do, right? It's being a full-time obviously will give me more time, but I'm trying to enjoy the little things. And those little things are, I only have 2-week vacation in the year. And instead of maybe using that to go to like a nice, like another thing, we'll go to Honduras. And I'm using that, and it feels good, right? It feels like it's something that I'm giving, even though I'm not a full-time. And then I enjoy that, and I eat Honduran food, and we bless the people. So those little things. Even when
we went right now to Honduras for family, to visit family, to introduce our daughter to our family there and stuff, Josue was getting calls to come speak at churches. To come speak at schools to the kids and share his story about how, he studied and it changed his life and it opened doors, and and we couldn't say no. So I feel like it's entwined, and we're always, we're here on vacation to visit our family, but of course we're going to make time to.
Yeah. So I think at a practical level, I've learned. I was more. I felt frustrated before. I think now I got more peace in the sense of I know that God will allow me when it's time. I will be able to do more in terms of feeling that I'm more like a part-time, full-time type of thing. But for now, I just need to whatever I see and we can do, just do it and feel peace about it, and at the same time, feel that I'm good in my work, because it feels. I'm telling you, like Jenny knows that she's working at the church now, and
that's changed and helped us in different. I feel like now we're a team. It's like, hey, I can do this. Tag, you're it. Can you, now that this is my job, it's a little bit different. I can before, overseeing the partnership, it wasn't my job. I was working in children's ministry at our church, and so I had to basically do all this on my free time, plan the trips, book all the flights, get all the hotel, like everything. It was like hours of personal time, but
I think you just have to be patient, trust the Lord. If there is a calling, not sure. Like I don't think that I can say God really called me to be a full time, but I just feel that God called me to the ministry. Right. So I gotta make sure that I don't get frustrated, because in my mind, ministry means full time, and that's in my mind, but doesn't mean that I'm not doing that by actually having a regular job and finding time and finding ways to do something.
And it's easy to say, like, I can't do it full time, so I'm not going to do anything at all.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's it's hard. You have to make those sacrifices.
And
Really.
and I shared that at this week. It's something that I ever since like when we moved, I think it's harder here just because I don't know. You have to I don't know. I feel like the metrics are different here, and
Yeah.
I had to do self evaluation every 6 months, and I have to show and you have to perform. And now because that means money. That means a lot of things, right? And so I feel like I struggle with it a little bit more here. And I was sharing that in the office, and then at the group, one of the guys joined because I went like at 8 something p.m. the night before, and I helped them out like, hey, I'm gonna go because we need to solve something in the lab. And the next day he's like, hey, let me tell you, I was like, I'm just trying to see how can I be and show, even do ministry there, right, and feel
Right.
that even though I'm
In
working
your job.
and yeah, in my job, I'm still doing something, and so it makes me feel different, right?
Right.
I can see my job in a different way. And so he was like, he just mentioned that he's like, hey, great example, blah blah. And I was like, in order for work to say, see,
Right.
you're doing it. Don't
Yeah.
feel frustrated. So I think you just I every day it's a prayer, it's something that God just helped me enjoy these
Right.
because for some reason I feel like I can do the job and I'm a good engineer, and so I don't want to be frustrated because God gave me the skills, right? So I want to enjoy that and find a way to do the ministry, and hopefully I hope one day, I don't know, God will call me and I will be able to do it full time.
Yeah, and for anybody who's listening too, I feel like you can become really defeated by you want to do so much, or if God's giving you a passion for a certain place, a mission, or a country, and you
Because
can't
there's
do
a
all
lot
the
of
things that you want to do because there are a lot of things that you could do to help. Find the little things that you can do and make an impact with that, because just like us, we wish we could do so much. We wish we could travel to Honduras every month and pour into the people and bring resources and stuff, and that just is not possible right now.
Right.
But you just do what you can with the resources that you have, and above all, show them love, and that passes all things. So.
Yeah. You guys, that's awesome.
So-
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're super
Thank you. Yeah, it's been an amazing
journey. That's
yeah,
for
and
sure.
we keep learning, and it's just keep growing, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much. So, well, everybody, until the next conversation, grace and peace.